Hi, in this video we are going to look at this keyword in Java as well as the concept of constructors that is available in Java. So this is a keyword that is available in Java, and this can be used inside a method or a constructor of a class. This keyword is always used to differentiate local and instance variables, and it points to the current object within an instance method or a constructor of a class. Let's look at an example here. I have a method called setName which takes an argument called username. But on top of this method called setName, I have another instance variable called username. Now, we are trying to allocate the value of the instance variable to the local variable called username. So to differentiate the local variable and an instance variable here, we have provided this dot, the instance variable name. So like we have already discussed, this points to the current object of an instance method or a constructor, as well as it always points to the instance variable. So having clarity about that, we can easily understand or differentiate this username variable as a local variable and this username variable with this dot, the variable name, as the instance variable. Of course, in our next video, we are going to look at the practical implementation of this keyword, which would shed more light on the usage of this. Now let's jump on to another important property called constructor that is available in Java. So first of all, what is a constructor? A method which has the same name as the class is called a constructor. So if I have a class called A, and if I have a method called A, so this method A is called the constructor of the class A because the method name is same as the class name. A class can have one or more number of constructors. And why did the name constructor has come is because this constructor gets invoked at the time of object creation, and this constructor provides data to the object, hence the name constructor, as it is constructing the object there. So every normal class will have an object. So you should understand that every class should have one constructor available. But is it mandatory to declare a constructor in every class? The answer would be no. If at all you define a constructor, then that particular constructor would be used at the time of object creation. If not, a default constructor will be built by the Java compiler. So that's about a constructor. If you look at this example, I have a class called student and I have method also defined with the same name as the class, which is nothing but student. So this student method is nothing but a constructor which has its own logic. And this constructor would be invoked at the time of object creation for the class called student. So this is where your constructor will get invoked, because you are creating an object for the class called student using the new keyword. But we have also discussed that a class can have one or more constructors. Yes, we can have more than one constructor. But a constructor is something which would have the same name as your class. So when you are declaring more than one constructor, it is nothing but constructor overloading. So each constructor would differ from the arguments they accept, so that when we create an object for the class called student, depending on the arguments that you pass to that particular object, that corresponding constructor would be called. Here we have a default constructor without any arguments. So when you don't pass any argument to the object called gen, then the default constructor would be called. Whereas if you pass the variables, two variables, to a constructor, to an object gen, then the overloaded constructor would be called. So from this you can understand that you can have any number of constructors, but they should differ in the arguments they accept. It can be the number of arguments or the type of arguments. And you have to understand one more important thing, that constructors doesn't have any return type. So that's the reason why for either of this constructor we didn't declare any return type. We are going to look at the practical part of constructor and this keyword in our next video, which would give much more details about the constructor and how this keyword can be used along with the constructor. So thank you so much for watching this video.